Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to HGC China. We have an old rivalry about to take place here. Thought I lost you there for a second, buddy. Glad you're back in the video.
Yep, apparently hitting the unmute button crashed our comms, but I'm back. Hello. We do in fact have an old rivalry, like you said. It is CE versus TheOne, and TheOne. They sort of came up and started stealing CE's thunder the second they entered into the league, stealing spot of BlizzCon, stealing rank 1, stealing the rivalry of SPT. They're taking everything from them.
They're taking everything, and CE they want it back. But yeah, it's really cool to see the development of, you know, the narrative in China, right? CE used to be that cemented number 2 seed, sometimes even number 1 seed of China, until TheOne decided to turn it up with like TheOne reminds me a lot of RPG right now. Like, they are a team in the making, a team on the rise. The question is, of course, will consistency and you know, maintaining the momentum be sufficient for RPG? But as it is, enough about RPG. They already impressed us enough in the previous years. It is now all about TheOne and CE. And while TheOne looks kind of okay-ish, you know, they've had their ups and downs, but definitely more ups than downs. I think the exact opposite can be said for CE. No longer are they this team that looks so indomitable. They even have to sort of endure the fact that their main tank player, Wind, is no longer with them.
Yeah, and as such, we saw yesterday that they've gone for a little bit of a role swap. We'll have to see if that continues. But their new tank player, XTQ, has got... Sorry, QST, isn't it?
XTQ.
XTQ, thanks, Ray. Couldn't remember there. He was playing the tank role, but it seems he has swapped with Zhuyu, where Zhuyu has now picked up main tank to sort of manage this for the team, and they had a little bit more success, but it was against Team Nut.
And that's crazy, right? When you swap roles in the middle of a series, and it's not just a minor role swap saying, okay, you're not going to play that kind of hero style anymore, you're going on the ranged assassin, we don't want you on the melee assassins anymore, but when you cross swap, right, you put your ranged assassin swap into the main tank role. That's a pretty significant one. And although Zhuyu did particularly well in Muradin, I think it's safe to say that without Wind up to this point, CE is not looking like the team we know them of.
Right now, Seron, their coach, is pacing like a puma. He is ready for this. He is excited. As we do see on the other side, TheOne, serious faces. They are used to being the top dog from last season. But their thunder right now has been stolen by BTG. And with SBT having a successful first outing for the day earlier, TheOne need to do the same in order to keep up.
All right, Alufol pretty high up there in the standings in terms of KDA, the 2 key players. Hugo a little bit further down, but once again, as a ranged assassin, you normally have a little bit of an easier time to accumulate a lot of kills and a lot of assists. Nonetheless, though, I think it's safe to say that both of those are still absolute star players. Hugo, one of the strongest solo laners we have in the league, sometimes a little bit resilient and stubborn when it comes to adjusting to the meta. He still likes his old picks like Leoric, Sonya, and Malthael, but recently has shifted over to the more defensive ones such as Blaze or Yrel.
Yeah, his adjustment has been very noticeable in the performance of the team, but they do still seem to be struggling a bit. As we are going to be heading in, once again, TheOne also running with a new player. So both these teams, same roster as last year, -1, as we begin to head in.
Unlike XTQ, though, Keshi, formerly known as Hape, is a pretty well-known face in the league. He used to play for KT last phase, performed admirably well, to the point where we even called him the best Genji in the league. Unfortunately, Genji, you know, has now more ban priority than ever before. He's still a very solid hero, very hard to deal with, and as such, Hape will probably have to adjust a little bit and play more ranged. Speaking of individual skill, who do you think, like, in terms of the players they have, who's in a better shape right now individually?
Out of Hape or XTQ, sorry?
No, sorry, TheOne and CE.
I mean, probably CE, but I think that's from a low sample size of if Zhuyu is still playing tank role for CE. He's so far only played Muradin. So I'd like to see like more of him playing that, and if he plays well, then there's a reasonable chance we could see them start to perform on a higher level again. But right now, TheOne look a lot more consistent.
I think so too, yeah. And immediately we see the same old. No big surprises up to this point here for TheOne. They rely on what they know is good. No longer do they have Muggle here, as we said, but now they're being reinforced by Keshi, who's... I mean, Keshi is probably more of the, you know, the ranged assassin player. Like, he's going to play those Rainers, those Sergeant Hammers, and Meng, he's still a little too flashy sometimes. He will still refer to, you know, slightly more aggressive melee assassins such as Thrall.
There's a pick. The ban away, sorry, of the Malthael. Interesting. I guess it's because they're going to want the Yrel. There's a Garrosh ban. So, yeah, Malthael would be okay against Yrel if that's what they end up going for as the solo laner, but that still opens up CE to go for Leoric, and that's completely fine.
Yep. Leoric is definitely a hero that I think should be utilized a little more, especially against Diablo on certain maps as well, where there's a lot of wave clear to be done. Hugo back on Yrel, and Sergeant Hammer, we have the double Terran Tetcher, very susceptible to blinds. It wouldn't even surprise me to maybe see a Cassina in the mix if they pull off a little bit of an RPG here.
See, now, here's where I think that something you have been harking on for a while now might be correct, where I think that this night might be time for Nazeebo.
Or Nazeebo. Dude, I would be super down for it. There goes one.
Okay. This might be just a situation of they don't have the people to play it. Like, if Zhuyu was still on range, then I think this could just be a Nazeebo straight up. This might just be Seron also, just saying that this works better. He is the drafter for the team in general.
I think I would have actually preferred a Li Ming over a Jaina as well against Sergeant Hammer. I don't know. How do you feel about it? Like, I think Li Ming just gets more consistent long-distance poke from the right angle against Sergeant Hammer.
It's interesting because the Jaina is definitely... Both of them are very acceptable about poking. Jaina's definitely going to capitalize more on Entomb.
Yeah.
So... I don't know. It's a tough one. I think she also just gives a lot of AoE, which might be really helpful. It's better wave clear. I think it's mostly for the wave clear aspect.
I guess you might have a point there, right? I mean, it's not just, you know, you need to really think in many different ways, not just in terms of how do I counter X hero, but also in terms of what does a hero also offer aside from these team fights, right? And as you said, wave clear wise, mercenary camp clear wise and stuff like that, I think Jaina offers a little bit more right now. Still, let's see how that's going to work out. I'm still feeling the ones draft overall. I feel like if you look at it, they're very hard to kill. Muradin Yrel always poses one of the most durable front lines possible. And I also think they have other tools like Sergeant Hammer and Rainer that can deal tons and tons of damage onto the enemy heroes, especially in the late game.
Quite so. So now then, we are preparing to head into our first map of the series. Remember, currently there is only 1 point separating these two teams. CE sit on 4, the one sit on 5. Whichever one wins will move up the table a little bit. If CE wins, they will move up tied with RPG. If the one win, they will keep neck and neck with SPT. If they both tie, then they're sort of sitting in that third, fourth place, middle of the table area. Fourth, fifth, sorry.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, the music is coming in, and that means that we are ready to go. Ready to be deployed to a first battleground between TheOne and CE. And as Tetcher said, a lot is on the line. The winner takes a big leap towards the top of the table, and we're ready on Infernal Shrines. On the left-hand side, in the blues, it is TheOne, represented by Hugo, Keshi, Meng, ZJZ, and almost fall into the trap there. Whew.
And on the right, it is CE with a Luful, XTQ, 365, KTY, and Zhuyu sticking on that main tank role. This time, though, bringing out the Diablo of a Feast on Fear style. And Rainer making the most of his AoE, give him some pepper. And on this map, going for the Exterminator.
All right, Exterminator coming in. Of course, that will be very useful against the Skeletons. As we said, Mercenaries as well, they fall a little bit quicker. And especially if your team lacks a little bit of wave clear early on, right? You want to enable your team to rotate a little bit faster by choosing this talent. And if you look at the enemy side on CE, they have wave clear galore. Jaina and Hanzo, that is so much punching power against minions.
Meng clears out the minion wave pretty quickly, and even using the Scroll of Sealing, a safety tool, as a push tool there. Very risky by TJZ, but they're able to do some decent damage. And with the Minds of Hammer, they see Zhuyu coming in from the side, slow down his rotation. Hammer just sieges up and backs up and retakes position, waiting for the next minion wave.
right? Huho so far in that Muradin has been doing pretty well, except for yesterday where he's really struggled against Tychus. He didn't even pick Avatar as a result because he was like, okay, if I pick Avatar, I'm just going to give Tychus even more value, you know, in terms of numbers. So I'm just going to try my luck with the Haymaker. Unfortunately, that backfired, and yeah, Huho's Muradin record took a little bit of a beating there, but he seems to be able to try again. And Huho is just such an interesting player to talk about in general right now, right? Some of the heroes he chooses are pretty much unique to him. That Arthas, for example, and Nubarak as well, one of his all-time favorites. Super interesting to see his development over the years.
And it's super interesting. Once again, we already mentioned it earlier to see Zhuyu on the tank again, meaning STQ is bringing out the Jaina for the team. And this might be the situation we were talking about earlier. When we're in a situation against the Sergeant Hammer, then picking up the Jaina, it's better on this map in general, but Nazeebo's still acceptable here and is a better counter to the Sergeant Hammer, and that might be a hero pool issue considering XTQ signed on to this team, at least to begin with, to be a tank player, not a ranged assassin player.
So Tetra, do you by chance happen to recall if Nazeebo was ever used against China at the Eastern Clash?
No, I think it was in Korea versus Korea.
Yeah.
Actually, it might have been in a Korea versus China. It was only used by Gen G and then in Korea versus Korea games.
Because I find it so interesting to see that China, you know, Gen G is basically the team that you want to copy sometimes, right? Because they are by far the best team in the world right now, I would say. Super hard to beat those guys. And if they rely on the Nazeebo in certain situations, I would certainly, especially as a coach, be like, okay, guys, we're going to take a look at those replays, and maybe we can take a lesson or two from that. But it's just a little astonishing to me that after China getting destroyed and bodied by Korea at the Eastern Clash, that they sometimes seem to refuse to, you know, really catch up on the Korean meta.
Yeah. Okay, so Gen G used it versus Ballistics to start with. And I will keep looking to see if they used it any other time. I mean, they've won a lot of matches, so it's going to be a little difficult to fight. It's going to be pretty easy to find, have less matches to look through if they were all mostly 3-0.
It would be way easier to find the losses of Gen G, right? Because they don't happen so often.
Yeah, only really within HGC China or versus Dignita's do losses happen in the form of Gen G, as we see Zhuyu moving in, but unable to get the right angle this time.
Okay, the fight continues though, 15 to 15 in terms of skeletons. CE is kind of pushed all the way back here to their own walls, and if you stand next to walls, then that might also reduce the numbers of light paths available. But finally, 365 pulls the trigger, use the Dragon Queen, but the One are not backing off. Quite the opposite, they're looking for an even more aggressive fight.
Takes a lot of damage. Good knockback by Zhuyu, sorry, by Meng to give the chance to escape. Wow, I just butchered every name there. As we see CE retake position, and they're looking pretty acceptable here. They're in a decent defense. They're able to take the first Punisher of the game, and the One looking a tiny bit shaky here. Also, I've just checked, only in Korea versus Korea.
Gotcha. Okay, so China didn't have to suffer against the Nazeebo. Otherwise, they might have actually taken a little bit of a notice here. Anyways, that was a good fight, as we said, by CE. Very cool to see the Alex Strasser dominate that shrine yet again. But also a super solid defense up to this point by the One. Only one tower has really fallen up to this point. The second might even live. Yes, it does. So nothing happened. Hugo did his job as the offlaner as well. Soaked 2 lanes, but already you can see they're probably going to miss a couple of minions in the middle because Leoric is just so darn fast at keeping up the pace.
And he is, although Meng is there to clean up the minion wave before the fort takes too much, before the gate takes too much damage at least. So their defense is reasonable here. Overall, it's not a huge lead for CE. It's only the first objective. They don't take down the fort. They don't even take down the second tower. This is still fine for the One. And once they hit level 10s, that's when we're going to start to see a lot of pressure. But CE's level 10 is also nothing to be sniffed at. They already have Dragon Queen available, but then they're going to have the Cleansing Flame. They're going to have whichever heroic Diablo decides to go with. And of course, Entomb to lock down heroes. And, well, Siege Tactics cannot defend against that.
Okay, Huho trying to wait until the minion wave is gone, but unfortunately that one archer minion dismounted him here up to this point. So let's see if they still try to make this happen, stunning on the Leoric so he doesn't get the Drain Hope in. But yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to, you know, ZJZ on the Decker Kane landing those Emerald Cubes against Alex Strasser. If you land those on the right targets when the Abundance Circle is about to hit, you can actually bait a lot of the enemy heroes into, you know, grouping up because they're expecting this heal, but it doesn't come through, and you focus them all down. So let's see how this support duel, Alex Strasser and Dragon Queen against Decker Kane with the Emerald Cube, is going to unfold.
to be able to hold the line for the moment. CE on the defensive play once again, as they are being pushed up pretty effectively. But Meng still having a pretty easy time in this bot lane. Hanzo's poking as much as he can, but it's only so much he can do. Clears the minions, but that doesn't really matter against the Sergeant Hammer. All it really does is open up the possibility for his allies to rotate, but Muradin has been too good at guarding there.
Are we sure this is not HGC Europe by chance? Because no kills have happened up to this point. 0-0. Very unusual for HGC China, which is normally a very explosive region with focus on a lot of brawling and team fighting. But it really speaks and testifies how seriously all teams are taking this serious, because the winner is actually going to get a lot of momentum and a big lead over the other.
Well, have no fear, Mr. Kendrick, for heroics are now online, and I would not be surprised to see a little more aggression coming out here. Alooful holding on to his level 10. Cheeky potential boy here. They could see the wonderful Entomb Dragon Strike in theory.
The Dragon Prison, I wouldn't mind it, to be honest. I mean, we have seen it succeed in the past in China, and while, of course, Dragon's Arrow is by far the more reliable heroic ability, in a weird world where the one doesn't expect it or doesn't respect it because the damage is oftentimes ridiculed, I think it could work.
Is that what we called it, the Dragon Prison?
I'm not sure what we called it, to be honest. It just came up to me.
Alright, chat. Whoever comes up with the best name is what I'm going to call it in the cast if it happens. As we see, starting from now, KTY for the moment, just zoning away best he can with good brain hope. 17-11 currently in CE's favor, but Meng is beginning to creep forward. There is that Dragon Strike. Entomb, charge in. Dragon Strike comes out. Was in the chance, so they just wrecked no one. Finally taking down the Sergeant Hammer. Decade as well. The Yorick is already dead though in exchange, and the counter kill by Muradin in the backline.
Muradin in trouble. Whoever needs to bring some distance in there, but he can't, and it is a 3-2 trade in favor of CE. The Dragon's Cage, whatever you want to call it. I'm actually looking at chat right now. Dragon Force, yep, all good names to me. Actually did some serious work.
Serpent Jail, Dragon Force. If we see a better one, then that's the next one we're going to call. But either way, CE able to barely win that fight. Thanks to the Yorick coming back early. You can see the wonderful Entomb. It actually body blocks Hammer as well, which is a huge deal. But the best Dragon Strike we have probably ever seen.
Yeah, that one was picture perfect. You know, it really hit the target it needed to hit. It hit several targets, which is also not always a given. It was the perfect location for it as well. Very little room for the one to actually outmaneuver the Dragon Strike.
Dragon's Den, boom, winner.
Dragon's Den with double alliteration, yeah. I'm loving it.
Also, it's a British TV show, so we're having that. As we see the move in onto He, tackling him back. Good body blocks, but not enough. They're running out of minions. They're choosing to back up.
I'm just trying to figure out what a show called The Dragon's Den would, revolve around.
There's an American version of it as well, but it's not called Dragon's Den. It's called Shark Tank over there.
I'm so confused. What is it all about?
Okay, we're actually entering into a calm moment as they're just doing Mercenary Camp, so I can talk about this very quickly. Dragon's Den / Shark Tank is where a load of billionaires sit in a room together with piles of money in front of them, and then people come in and pitch their ideas to them, asking for funding in exchange for percentage in the company.
Oh, we've got a similar show as well in Germany, but I think it's called The Lion's Den or The Lion's Cave. So
sounds about right.
Exactly.
Dragon's Den, Shark Tank, Lion's Cave. Wow, we're terrible at names. As we see the move out from CE, the good Lord Nado, Zhuyu in trouble. Cleansing Flame coming in for the heal, but will it be enough? Zhuyu taking so much damage, and he will go down.
He will go down, but he survived for an astounding amount of time, refusing to die immediately, but he also lost all of his soul stones.
I'm sorry, but I have to change. It's no longer the Dragon's Den. It is the Dungeons and Dragons. Vetoed. As we see XTQ dodges the roof. BFG does a bit of damage. Diablo is back, but he has no souls. Hammer's moving in. Good lightning breath. Dragon Strike not killing anyone, but they still get the snipe onto Raider.
Yeah, they get the Rainer, and I think TheOne was actually expecting to at least take down this fort as well as a consolation prize here. Look at KTY, the Entomb is good. Hammer in trouble, gets stunned because of the Entomb. But look at Diablo, he's completely annihilated by that tornado.
He is completely destroyed, gets locked down in tower range. That tower with no health helping take down Diablo. And that is another trade-up. And TheOne, they're still behind in experience by a full level, but it's 4 kills to 4 right now.
And it is, ladies and gentlemen, we are in for a game right now. The kills are ramping up. It's 4 versus 4 right now. Diablo, unfortunately, as you called it, the double death syndrome, it really started to kick in here again. Once you respawn after losing all of your stacks, you're not as tanky anymore, and you really need to be very cautious when to engage or when to choose your engagement. Looks like that Lornado also completely caught him off guard. You could really see how he was even trying to overpower Sergeant Hammer after pushing it against the wall. That Lornado really messed up the animation over and over again, so great call by ZJZ on the Decker Kane.
Great War comes out, KTY able to escape for the moment. Fallen Shaman Camp already taken by TheOne, with it being taken in reply by CE. This is going to be in the Shrine lane though, so that's not going to be such a big deal. Both teams will be in lane to defend that.
Yep, 16 is around the corner for both teams there as well. Let's actually see if we see any surprising talents. Not really. Alex Strasser, I guess it could be worth mentioning that she chose the Life Unbound. Additional healing that also scales with the target's max health. So in terms of numeric value, it'll get most efficiency on Diablo. It's high health pool, but Diablo needs to farm a couple of souls there as well. As long as he's mini dibbles, not really that resilient, not that much of a threat.
The Oryx wrapping around from the side, looking for that potential Entomb. As already going to be regenning here. He backs up, gets up to full health again. Keshi trading out. They get the landing onto XTQ.
Wow.
Who goes down. Dragon, cleansing flame. Not even close to enough. Lornado on Juyu and get absolutely wrecked, CE.
You can't use your Life Unbound, you can't heal anyone when there's anti-healing, and then Rainer executing KTY as well. It's a clean triple kill. Now, they don't even have to wait until this Punisher gets unleashed. They can even take down a couple of structures before that, but let's take another look at that teamfight picture.
Stormbolt already complete quest, so he was able to hit Jada and get the quick blow up with the help of Keshi, with that give him some pepper, and then it was all about the turnaround to Juyu. Wraithwalk was attempted to use by KTY to get out, but the last attack hit just as he teleported, and he was killed off as well, making the triple kill.
Decker, Kane, man, ZJZ, have some mercy on those poor souls of CE. You are catching a helpless target every single time with those Lornados. Also, I gotta commend rather his timing on the Emerald Cube. So good. Even if it's used against a single target, they make sure they get the kill because of it. Because no healing from Alex Strasser, no self-healing from Leoric. That was super clutch, super clean.
Now the Punisher has arrived. Gate taken down, turret already dead. The Punisher dives onto Diablo. They charge him in. Emerald Cube is good. Lornado again. The Entomb is used, but it catches no one. Dragon Strike does land a little bit onto Keshi, who gets wrecked by a Luful.
Yeah, the splitting value there on that Dragon Strike was pretty insane. They even pinged on Rainer like crazy there. Look at the healing. XTQ, though, can survive, unfortunately, through all that burst damage. And with 3 members dead, and only Rainer sort of on the bench right now for TheOne. This might very well be a core, especially considering the fact that it is an arcane puncture. Those arcane turrets on the ground, they will deal terrible, terrible damage onto the core. And with only a Luful and Alex Strasser defending, this is definitely going to be GG. TheOne take the lead.
Game number 1 for TheOne. They looked strong, a little bit shaky at the start, but second they were able to get into the late game, they started just shutting down Juyu over and over again. And that's got to be rough, considering this is your 3rd game basically on the tank role.
Yeah, and for the first time, he did not play Murden, as we hinted towards. He played that Diablo, and while it was not the most terrible Diablo performance I've